Come here. Komm jetzt.
Nein, come here.
Raus, raus alle.
And there were a man standing. This time we didn't know who it was, but today we know it was Dr. Mengele.
Auschwitz kien l-ikbar kamp fis-sistema tan-Nazisti fejn ipproċessa eluf kbar ta' priġunieri matul 4 snin. Dan kien ukoll l-ikbar kamp tal-mewt. Il-lut kienu jinġibu hawnhekk fuq vagun minn madwar l-Ewropa, minn pajjiżi bħal Franza, l-Olanda, l-Italja, il-Greċja, ir-Russja u pajjiżi oħrajn.
What happens, for instance, in the transports that came from Zagwembia, 50 miles away, 40, 50 miles away? You could get there right now by car in less than an hour. You could get there by train inside of 2 hours, okay? They would purposely put people on there. The people hadn't showered, they hadn't shaved, they hadn't gone to the bathroom, they hadn't eaten, they hadn't done anything for 2 or 3 days. So when they put them on the trains, they were sitting there, sitting in straw, going to the bathroom in front of one another. Their old parents were distraught.
It was July. It was a very warm July, very warm summer. They said us, we have to go to the railway station. We went to the railway station, and there a train was already waiting of us.
So people went to the stations, they were sent away. However, when the trains returned empty to take on a new load of people, station cleaners found little notes in them saying that the people are being taken to concentration camps where mass killing is taking place. We didn't and we couldn't believe it, which of course we should have done. And yet we had no option. So one day I found myself in the station with my parents. We were packed in very tightly into these cattle trucks and taken on an overnight journey.
We're taken to the railway station and we're loaded into wagons, 100 people in a wagon.
And there, in one cabin, they put about 70, 80 people. Men, women, children, babies, without food, without anything.
And they pushed in 180 people in a wagon. We were cramped. There was a tiny window on the top.
Over 100 people suffocated on that journey because there was no air in those cattle trucks. There's only a few sleds on top, and it was so hot and no air, and over 100 people suffocated.
They put in 2 buckets, one with water, one for human waste. From the place where we sat down, you could not move.
They had a blanket and a bucket, and that's what we did our business, weed and whatever it was. We're men and women together.
And like that, we traveled 5 days. I promise if today they would take animals to slaughter that way, the whole world would cry out.
Typically, this would carry about 100 prisoners, but we have to define what is a prisoner. I classify them as either those who are doomed or who are going to be used as slave labor. So typically, 100 prisoners would come in something like this, but in the Hungarian action, when they brought them into the camp using these exact same rail lines, these are the rail lines they use. They go to crematorium 2 and 3, and then some would walk over to 4 and 5. These are the type of rail cars they would use.
Quite a few people died on the way. The journey was 5 days. They opened sometimes the door to take out the dead, and they gave us sometimes a bit of water, but we had no food.
After 2 days traveling from Lodz, we arrived in a camp. And through the crack, I've noticed an assessment with a dog, Alsatian dog, that got me worried right away.
It was 9th of July. We arrived to a place. We looked out on this little so-called window on the train, and we didn't know what we see here. They look humans, or they don't look even humans. Some humans were moving there. They didn't look no man, no woman, in rocks, people, and this place.
Dawn was just breaking when the train slowed down and came to a stop. Immediately we heard dogs barking. They unbolted, opened up the doors, and when we looked outside, it seemed that an army of assessment and Gestapo awaited the train, all heavily armed and with large guard dogs.
They opened the door from the train, and they said, quick, very schnell, herunter. You have to go quick.
And the commandant would come out and say, we need carpenters, we need shoemakers, we need everybody. We're going to put you to work here for the great German war effort. We're going to take you off the trains, and what we're going to do is we're going to give you hot bread, soup, and tea. You got to get showered up first. You got to get rid of the bugs, the lice, and then we're going to assign you a job. So all those people could think of after 2 or 3 days was
They were given hope.
they were given hope. And of course, it was a terrible lie.
We arrived here on that track near the pole, telephone pole, and we were discharged from other prisoners who jumped into the train and chased us out.
They started screaming and bellowing, get off the train, get a move on, be quick.
In confusion, if you can imagine, almost 100 people in the cattle car, almost 100 people. And there's dead bodies in the cattle car, and smell. Oh, we were on the train for 2 days and 2 nights from Mauthausen to over here. And my father saved my life, and he was leaning against the cattle car. So here is the wall of the cattle car, like that. And Bernard was right here behind his feet to prevent me from getting crushed with the other
Prisoners.
Yes.
My father jumped off the train. I jumped after him. By the time I jumped off, I didn't see him anymore. He disappeared like into thin air, and I never saw him again. He was only 40 years old. I never saw him again.
Meta jinżlu mill-ferrovija kienu jisseparaw lin-nisa li ma kinux b'saħħithom, l-tfal, l-xjuħ u l-morda fuq ix-xaluk direttament għall-kamra tal-gas, il-gas chamber. U n-nisa u l-irġiel u l-oħrajn li jifdal kienu jibatuhom fuq l-lemin, jiġu tatud b'numru u jintbatu jaħdmu bħala skjavi.
Deinen Rucksack bitte. Gut, wir zusammengehen.
Amen.
Wie heißt du? Sonst man.
I was in one of the wagons with the patients because I felt it awkward of imposing myself on the people I just casually I hadn't been with. And they told us to leave the sick people, the children, the old people in the wagons.
We wanted to take our little belonging, what we had with us. They said, leave everything that we will bring you out. But go quick and stand in 5.
Well, we were separated over there where the group of people are. There was a selection process.
It was really difficult for us to stand up. We were days in the dark, hungry, dirty. And suddenly it was a nice sunny day. It was, and a place we didn't know what happens to us. We were really half dead already when we arrived.
They took men to one side, women to the other side. The guards moved in, telling us, you are here now in Auschwitz-Birkenau. This is the place where people are being taken straight into the gas chambers. That was our greeting.
Men and boys in one queue, women and children in the other queue. And we arrived in Auschwitz. And we moved forward.
And there were a man standing. This time we didn't know who it was, but today we know it was Dr. Mengele.
The butcher of Auschwitz, we learned later.
Josef Mengele twilet fis-16 ta' Marzu 1911. Qabel il-gwerra wanata dottorat fl-antropoloġija u fil-mediċina u beda l-karriera tiegħu bħala riċerkatur. Wanaqat mal-Partit Nazzista fl-1937 u mbagħad mal-SS fl-1938. Għal-bidu tat-tieni gwerra dinjija huwa kien assenjat biex iservi bħala uffiċjal mediku tal-battaljun fejn imbagħad fil-bidu tal-1943 ġie trasferit għal kamp tal-konċentrament Nazzista. Wa ġie assenjat biex iservi f'Auschwitz. F'dan il-kamp minn barra li kien jagħmel diversi esperimenti fuq il-priġunieri illi wasslu għal diversi imwiet, wa kien ukoll jiddeċiedi jekk persuna għandix tmur għax-xogħol jew inkella tintbagħat direttament f'kamra tal-gass.
Wherever he saw two people holding hands, he would deliberately split them up.
With one movement of his hand,
He directed one to live and one to die.
He would look at them to see if they're healthy enough and old enough to be registered as slave labor, okay? Sometimes right meant death, sometimes left meant death.
And generally speaking, there was a cutoff that anyone who was younger than 16 would be sent directly to the gas chambers.
They ask you what your age was. The 3 officers asked you your age. I told them I was 17, but I was only 14.
My father was sent there actually with his brother. His brother was 12 and a half years older, and when they arrived on that platform, my father was only 15 years old at the time, and he lied. He said he was older. He was with his 12 and a half year old brother.
people who were sent to the left, they were straight. They were the old people and the young people. They were straight taken to the crematorium.
Because they tried to take a child away from a mother. She was holding a baby. She was a young mother, and they wanted to take the mother for work. And they tried to take the child away, and then she started screaming. The SS went on towards her. That's when I made my move, me and another boy from the orphanage, and we got through to the right side.
This way, you're dead. This way, you're alive. Now, Harry Zaborowski, his brother was selected to live. And he said, I'm not going to be separated from my wife and children. And the SS man said, go. And he picked up his 3 children and he walked to the gas chambers.
we went forced march to this point where there was a selection by an SS man. Either went left or right. I went to the right down that way, and my father went to the left that way. And I could see him from a distance, and he could see me. And we had a kind of a eye contact, I think, and felt that this was the end for both of us or one of us. We didn't know which side was the better side, to the right or to the left.
Which one was?
Well, to the right was the better one because I survived. My father went to the gas chamber down that way.
My younger brother and my younger sister were sent to the left. Me, with my other two sisters, were sent to the right.
Wara li jintgħażlu, il-Ġermaniżi kellhom sistema kif jieħdu ħsieb lil-lut.
They lined us up and we were taken right to the end of the camp. And while we were walking, we had a beautiful orchestra playing. There were over 100 musicians, the best ones, picked out from all over Europe. They were sitting there playing all day long. The reason why they were sitting playing there, I don't know. But some people said that the people in the camp shouldn't hear the screaming coming out of the gas chambers.
When they came through this gate, they didn't come back out. They went up the chimney. They were cremated, gassed and cremated right here at this structure. This is crematorium number 2, 70 meters that way is crematorium number 3. When we walk through here, tens of thousands of young Jewish people and old Jewish people and children and grandparents, innocent, all of them, came through this gate, Joe. We're going to walk right through it. It's a gate of no return. It's like a gate of hell. These are the same gates. With the victims would come through the gates of hell there. They would walk along the perimeter and they were told they're going to get a shower. And the women and children and the men and the old people would come through here. And there's a song called The Stairway to Heaven. This, unfortunately for them, was a stairway to hell because that's what they were about to experience.
All the people which went to the left went straight into a very large hole. They were told to strip, leave the clothes on the bench, their clothes on the benches. They had their hair was shaved, and they were pushed into a very large room which looked like a shower room.
They entered into a fake shower room. They even had shower heads there that looked like they would give off water. And they were told to dress, put their clothes on a hook, tie their shoes together because they would be used. And it was all part of the ruse.
Everyone had their head shaved. They didn't do mine because my head was shaved when I had typhus in the lodge ghetto recently. So they didn't touch my head, but everyone had their head shaved.
And everybody was trying to be pleasant and pushing them along. And they walked through out of the shower room, the undressing room, and they came here. And this is the gas chamber, right here.
And then they pushed us into a room which looked like a shower room. Everyone was saying prayers, hugging, kissing one another. We thought that was our last hour.
This was they jammed everybody in. There's no steps to get out. This is
A brick wall.
This is just a brick wall. And the SS men would climb up on top, and they had holes cut in the top, and they would drop down a column a column, they would drop the Zyklon B, the cyanide, the poison, prussic acid down there. And it would hit the air. It came in these little canisters. They have some, probably seen. And as soon as it hit, it started to vaporize, become a gas. And as people breathed it in, it interrupted those enzymes which capture oxygen into your bloodstream.
Screaming that was coming out of there, it's impossible to describe, but it didn't last very long. After about 15 minutes, all was quiet.
You're coughing up your soul, you're gonna die. And this is what happened. They realize you're gonna die, but within is their loved ones coughing up their souls as well.
And then a Sonderkommando, the strongest men picked out from the whole camps for this special work. They would walk in there, open up the doors, switch on the ventilators to disperse the gas, and their task was, amongst these people there were always some dentists. They had to pull out goat teeth out of the bodies, because on the continent was a fashion, whoever needed a false tooth or a crown it was always made out of gold, and these dentists had to pull out the goat teeth, and then they had to take out all the bodies into the nearby crematoria. They couldn't do this work for very long. Sometimes they would throw themselves against the electrified fencing.
Vida, come.
And we went on, walked, and when we walked to a certain point, one of the workers in a striped suit said, "You're on the right side." I didn't know right side, I had no idea where we were.
People who were sent to the right, young people, that was not meant that I should survive, and they tell after 73 years later for you my story, they was only meant that the German population, the men, were on the front. They needed some young people to work, because the factories and everything, the work had to get on. So they wanted to let us to live a bit longer, take out from us that much work, how much they can.
Those lucky enough to pass the initial selection, that's what they called it, a selection, would be taken over to another area here.
We all had to go downstairs to the quadrangle, and a selection took place. This time they took my grandmother away. They took all old people, children, pregnant women, invalids, people who didn't look fit for work, they took them all away. Somehow I slipped through the net, but one of the assessmen noticed the ring on my father's finger, and he said, "I want the ring, hand it over." My father explained that he can't get the ring off. So this assessment tried. He fiddled around with it backwards and forwards, and he could tell he'll never get the ring off. So he said to the guard next to him, "Fetch an axe and chop the finger off, just like that. How else are you going to take it off?" Well, I didn't see many miracles during the Holocaust, but this, if you didn't see it, you can't believe it. As he finished saying these few words, the ring on its own, without any prompting, rolled off the finger. as though it would have been 5, 6 sizes too big, rolled by itself and stopped at the assessment's feet. And he said to my father, pick it up, which of course my father picked the ring up and gave it to him. In return, he got some very hard kicks, and that was the end of the ring.
Well, my group, we were sent to the right and in the direction of the showers and tattoo.
Then we went to a brick building, and we were told to get undressed in the nude, and I had 6 photographs of my family on me, and had to leave the photographs, and I never seen the photographs again.
We were pushed into a large room, told to take our clothes off but keep your shoes on. And they had little stools, like milking stools, to sit down, and men in striped pajamas came with razors and cut off our hair, not only our head, all over our bodies.
Take all our clothes off. We went into the next room, we had our hair shaved off, and then we went for a shower. And after that we got our striped suits.
And where we were given some clothes to wear. Now, to give you an example, they gave me a very large skirt which wouldn't stand up, and a men's pajama jacket, and that was all. No underwear, no shoes, nothing else. Mother had to tear off a piece from the pajama jacket and tied up the skirt. It shouldn't fall down.
Wie viele haben Sie? 40 Gramm jetzt. Alles gut. Sollen wir mehr nehmen? Ja.
Wie ist denn eigentlich deine Frau? Wann kommt das Kind?
3 Monate.
3 Monate. Und alles gesund zu Hause? Ja.
Sie wird nervös.
Oh, das ist nicht gut. So. Das ist für meine Alte.
My brother took a few jewelry for my mother, one of my little golden pendant, and put it in the heel for my mother's shoe. When we came out from the shower, then we looked for our belongings. Nothing was there. They took everything away. But only they let us to have our shoes. But I should have mentioned before that when we were still in the train, just the last day in the travel, my mother said, maybe we should change shoes. And I changed shoes with my mother, so I had my mother's shoes with the jewelry in it. And like that, the jewelry survived. And this little golden pendant, what I have here, I think that is the only gold who went in camp and came out with the original owner. Because in Auschwitz, not that took only all the gold, if somebody had golden tooth, they took out also the gold. So that is, I think, the only gold what it went in and came out with the original owner. And I wear that every day.
Il-priġunieri kienu jitqasmu f'diversi klassijiet u jintarfu b'marki speċjali fuq ħwejjiġhom.
We were also registered along the way.
And we also got a number on the arm. I lost my name. From that day onwards, I didn't have a name, I just had a number, B7608. That was my number and that was my name. I had the same here on a piece of cloth and also on the trousers. So that was, I lost my name, I don't have a name anymore, just with a number.
I have a number B7815.
When you see an Auschwitz tattoo, you can look at it, or I can look at it as a scholar, and I can tell you exactly when they came into the camp and what area of Europe they came from, okay? You can identify that. That's why I encourage anybody whose grandparents or uncles or aunts or anybody they met that was an Auschwitz survivor, they had a tattoo number, write the number down. That is the first area you could start your journey to figure out where they came from, okay? And that is critical. And to me, it was their identity here. They lost their names, and after a few weeks of starvation, they started to look like one another.
And then they took a register of us. We all had a number on a white piece of oblong linen with black lettering, which we had to pin on, one in the front, one in the back. Till we came from the Lodz ghetto in 1944, they used to tattoo numbers on the left wrist. But when we came, they didn't do that anymore. They gave us a number to pin on, one in the front, one in the back.
Everybody had a number in Auschwitz, so the people which were kept alive, everybody had a number.
Issa li dawn in-nies innoċenti spiċċaw priġunieri ġewwa Auschwitz fejn ser wassalhom id-destin tagħhom.